Well, hello and welcome to this video on the MT5 platform indicators. And I'm delighted and very proud to announce that we have now developed and released 3 or 4 new indicators for MT5. But as you can probably appreciate, MT5 and MT4 are very similar in terms of platform. And so the indicators work in exactly the same way on both platforms. So rather than record the same series of videos again for MT5, which I've already done on MT4, what I would urge you to do is, this is an introductory video, if you like, where we're going to cover all 4 variants, the new indicators. I'm going to go through them one by one on these 4 charts. But in addition to that, you'll find on the MT4 video library a lot more videos as well, which explain the indicators in more detail. So this is really just an introduction to them, if you will, which I've done for the MT5 variants. What we have here, we have 4 charts. Top left, we have the Aussie yen on 5 minute. Top right, we have the S&P 500. Bottom left, we have gold on 5 minutes, and the same on the bottom right chart. And if we start at the top left, this is the first indicator. This is the volume relative strength indicator. And as the name suggests, what it's looking at is the relative nature of volume. And throughout all the videos I've recorded, there's one constant word which appears all the time, and that word is pressure. Because pressure is what we want to see in the trend. We want to see momentum, which we call pressure. Because if you're seeing pressure in the trend, then that means that trend has got some strength in it. It has some force behind it, has some pressure behind it. And the way the VRSI indicator works is very intuitive. There are 3 key things we look at. The first is obviously the fulcrum, where we are either bullish or bearish. Above the line we're bullish, below the line we're bearish. The second aspect we look at is really the color. The strength of color. Where we have strong colors, that is signaling strong momentum, strength in other words. And where we have weaker colors, in this case we have the orange to the upside and we have the lighter blue to the downside, that is signaling where that strength has maybe waned a little bit, it's diminishing. And the third aspect we look at, which is probably the most important, is the height of these bars, these pressure bars that we call them. Now, the reason height is so important is because that signals in itself strength. The taller the bar, the greater is that pressure that is being driven into the trend. And you can see an example here, where the bearish sentiment, the height of those bars is relatively low, quite small. Whereas when we move to the bullish side of the trend, you can see the height jumps enormously, telling us we've got strong volume pressure in this trend, and therefore it's likely to be sustained. And indeed, throughout that trend, you can see the height of those pressure bars. It doesn't diminish a great deal. It does wane off towards the end, obviously. But throughout that trend, they maintain a pretty good size. And this is the beauty of the VRSI, because it has many parallels to our volume price analysis methodology. And by that I mean that when we look at the analysis of a volume bar in our VPA methodology, we are looking at height. We are looking at taller bars, shorter bars, how they compare one with another, how groups compare. Are they rising? Are they falling, generally speaking? And in a way, VRSI is very, very complementary, which is why we also run it with the VPA underneath, with our volume price underneath it. Because the two are so complementary, because we're looking at similar things. With the VRSI, we are looking at height. We are comparing height. You see how, as the trend develops, the volume bars start to fall away a little bit. The color lightens when we get those little reversals, but then it picks up again. It goes back into brighter and the bars start rising again. And you see that throughout that trend. And it's really only when we get to the end of that trend, at the absolute peak, that you see the spreads narrowing. You see the bars falling away quite steadily. The color is now brighter, is the orange, the paler orange. and ultimately we get down to the fulcrum point, and we then rotate through into potentially a bearish move lower with a little bit of blue peeking through right there at the end. So that is what the VRSI indicator is all about. We use it in exactly the same way as we do with every other indicator, in other words, in multiple time frames. It's absolutely essential. And in addition, as I said, in fact, in the video library for MT4, you'll find an example where I've used the VRSI in combination with our underlying methodology, which is the volume price analysis methodology. It's a very intuitive indicator, and it's designed to keep you in. It's designed to give you a colorful pictorial view of the sentiment and strength in any trend, and therefore it will help you. It will help to give you the confidence to stay in and maintain your profitability through these trends. When they reverse against you marginally, you will want to close out and take your profits off the table. It is very damaging. That is what most traders suffer with, and why their trading accounts don't move forward. So this is going to help you enormously in that respect. So that's the VRSI top left. Top right, we have the VWAP indicator, which is another volume-based indicator we've developed, which is the volume weighted average price indicator. Again, you'll find more indicators, find more videos over on the MT4 video library. But this is an introduction, and I'll do it. There is another video coming as well. It's 5 in 1. You have the VWAP itself. Then you have the AVWAP, which is the anchored VWAP, which we're looking at here. We then have the MVWAP, which is a moving average volume weighted average price. We have the intraday VWAP, which works on the daily time frame, and we have for longer term investing, and we also have the time VWAP. All of those are included. You get to decide which one you want to use. I've chosen the anchored one here, and you can literally drop it at any important point. So if you have a significant high or a significant low that you want to start the calculation from, that's what the anchored VWAP does. And as you can see, the price bounces off that outer wave. The center red line is the VWAP itself, which is considered fair price, fair value, if you like. And the outer two envelopes are one standard deviation from that central VWAP. And notice how the price bounces off, it retraces, it bounces off. This is what you find on these outer envelopes and within the VWAP itself. And as I say, you can anchor this at any point. If you use the traditional VWAP, then the VWAP recalculates every new session, so it will start afresh. That is a function of how the VWAP works. And you have these other alternatives as well. You've got the moving average, which moves through that and does away with that necessity. And then we have the intraday, which works on the daily. So if you're a longer term investor, you have that ability as well to have the VWAP on those slower time frames also. So that's the VWAP. Bottom left, we have the MSI, the market strength indicator, which is, as its name suggests, is a market strength indicator. And what I've done here is I've applied it to the gold chart. So we have the gold, which is gray, and we have the orange, which is the dollar. Because typically, dollar will move inversely to a commodity. If you're familiar with the currency strength indicator, then many of the concepts and ideas associated with that will translate perfectly to the MSI, because the way I like to use it, I'm looking at extremes again. I like to get into a trend earlier. That's what these extremes are all about. When we get to a strongly overbought or a strongly oversold, as we can see here with the gray line, then those are potential opportunities to get into a trend early before it's got underway. You do have to set a slightly wider stop because you have to put more risk on the table. It's part and parcel. But then my payoff, risk and reward go hand in hand. I get paid more reward because I've put more risk on the table. In other words, I get into the trend right at the start. If you're jumping on the trend once it's underway, you have to give up some of that trend because you were patient and waiting for the trend to get underway, and therefore can set a tighter stop loss. So that's the way I like to use it. But of course, what it also reveals, in the same way the CSI does, is it reveals strength. So if we've got a strongly rising line or a strongly falling line, that's indicating that the strength has real strength in it. It's moving fast, in other words. Equally, as we see at the end of this piece of price action, where the two are oscillating between one another, they're twisting between one another, really not going anywhere, then we're in congestion, and we know that that market is not going anywhere fast at the moment. But as soon as they break out from that and start to trend higher or slow or lower in a strong way, then we know that trend is now starting to get underway again. But as I say, I like to look at the extremes. I've always liked extremes, getting into a trend early, and of course we use it in multiple time frames. And again, over on the MT4 library, you'll find many other examples of using this with indices, futures, stocks, currencies, ETFs, you name it, you can apply it to the indicator. And of course, cryptocurrencies. Finally, over on the right-hand side, that was the 5-minute gold chart associated with the MSI. And what I've done here is I've applied our tick volume indicator, to which we've made a couple of enhancements whereby you now have the ultra high volume of the session, and you've also got the ultra low of the session, and you've got the midpoint there as well. So you can see what is our high, what is our low, and what is our average throughout the session of the chart of interest. So there we are. That's a brief introduction to those indicators. More videos to come. Lots of videos over in the MT4 library as well. So please do pop over there. Hope you've enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching. See you soon, and bye for now.